have found another one. Today's project is another Rushton star creation made back in the 1950s. So, as you can see, it needs a little bit of a sprucing up. So we're going to go ahead and start by accessing the easiest seam. So we're just going to go ahead and pop that open so we have some easy access to the stuffing, which we will be removing in order to wash. Now, I'm oddly enough using some nail clippers that I like to because they're kind of precise, but also a seam ripper is always kind of handy. So let's start off with a bag since I am going to be reusing the stuffing since it's its original. I'm just going to go ahead and set that aside. I will recommend you wearing a mask during this process. Again, a lot of these plush are filled with sometimes very mysterious fibers that kind of spring into the air as such. So just be cautious while you do remove all the stuffing. Now, it's pretty easy. A lot of times you'll find these plush, and if the stuffing is all like packed together, it probably means it was washed once or twice or got wet, that's not my favorite stuffing to reuse, I will say, but this one was pretty decent. So just following all of the limbs, plucking it out one by one. So as you can see, we have a flat bunny just like that. We're going to go ahead and pop those ears off actually. I am going to be doing a watercolor method on these, which I always am a fan of using, but in order to do it, I have to disconstruct the ears entirely. So one ear off, another one to go. Again, really just following those seams since we really do not want to cause any tearing. So once I remove the ears, we will go ahead and set these aside for the actual coloring method I'll be applying in a little bit. But first we'll get them all nice and clean. So I did want to show the wire that actually comes in each ear. I will be reusing this once I get them a little bit straightened up again, but that is typically one thing that gets kind of stuck in the ears, and then you just kind of have floppy ears. So we're going to go ahead and get some soapy lukewarm water. Of course, I brought out the cute little PY and Pyrex. Gonna go ahead and give him a good hand wash. Now, making sure we are pretty gentle with this old guy. He had very minimal fur loss, so whenever one does have such, you really want to be extra careful. Too much rough tension can cause even further fur loss, so wanting to avoid that entirely. So as you can see, I'm really just giving him a good wipe down. I'm not trying to rub in the face paint too much since a lot of times these were hand painted, and if you rub them too much, they're very liable to have the paint flake off, or rub off, I should say. Now, I will say I am doing a couple of passes of these, changing out the water a couple of times. Usually it would be nicer to do in a bigger sink, but for video purposes and for aesthetic purposes, I do it in some Pyrex. So let it air dry, as you can see. Then we're going to use some semi-permanent hair color. This one is actually a purple-based pink. Since the ears did have a yellowish tinge to them, I wanted to go ahead and counteract that a little bit. Instead of going straight in with pink, which could go a little bit orange, I did use one that had a little bit of a purple undertone, so that will be counteracting the kind of off-color yellow tinge that there might be. So just gently working that in, doing layer upon layer. Again, with vintage plush and coloring fibers, you really want to just work in a very slow process, as opposed to completely turning it neon. I've definitely done it once or twice in the past, and it's just no fun trying to reverse that. Again, we have another very flat but yet very clean Rushton bunny ready to be restuffed. I am quite happy with how bright he turned out. So again, going back in with that original stuffing, I am going to take section by section, just re-stuffing him a little bit. Honestly, one of those machines from Build-A-Bear would really, really be helpful right now, but I'm guessing those are going to be outside of my budget or most people's budgets. So just doing it by hand, unfortunately, until I can afford one. And I mean, this can kind of be a little bit of a lengthy process, but as I work in the stuffing, really just giving him a good squish around, making sure all of the stuffing inside him is nice and evenly throughout him. So next I'm going to go ahead and start to stitch him back up. Now I will say he's not usually fully stuffed at this point. I usually just like to try to get him a little bit more back together, and then kind of right before I have to finish stitching him up, I'll add in whatever extra stuffing he might need. So, well, yes. And next off, again, I'm just finishing up getting all of the stuffing in. Now, sometimes I'll use a pair of scissors like I just was, or sometimes I'll use a chopstick, or kind of a knitting tool to really try to get all of the stuffing in them. So next off, I'm going to go ahead and get the ears actually assembled back together again. I did pop the seam between the two sides since again I had to access the pink side to do the watercolor method, but they look a lot better, I might say. And so here I am just reinserting the wire, as you can see, nice and posable. Going to just kind of pop that in the hole, and then I'll go in and sew that afterwards once we can really get it nicely in position. So now we're going to go ahead and start painting. Going in with a clear matte varnish, just going over anything I'm going to be painting. So I will be painting or touching up the nose, the lips, a little bit on the teeth, and then a little bit in the eyes. Now I will say everyone's a little bit different when it comes to these old guys, so if you want to retouch them, totally go for it. Clearly I like to do so. Or if you like to leave them alone and just in their pre-loved state, I get down with that too. I have quite a few plush I just leave in their crusty, dusty kind of state. But I think this one turned out pretty well. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments. If there's any questions I might have not answered, let me know. I did want to point out I did do another matte varnish top coat. Or I should say it was more of an eggshell. But anyways, thanks so much for watching and see you in the next.